Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here with another Steven Universe discussion, and today I am joined by Robobuddies.
Hi, I'm Robo. I'm a robot.
I'm sorry Ellen DeGeneres couldn't make it today, but we have Robobuddies. So, uh,
Close enough.
okay, so as always with these Steven Universe discussions, big spoilers, but only for the 5 episodes in the Steven Bomb and no further. At this point, I don't know if any other episodes are out or whatever, but yeah, spoilers for them. Before we jump into the episodes, I kind of have to mention my obligatory spiel about what happened with the airing of this week and how it just got completely weird because there were leaks. There were like official leaks on CartoonNetwork.com that Cartoon Network put up. Then there were unofficial leaks. Then the official leaks went down, and then Steven's dream stayed up the first episode, and then the other episodes got uploaded like before they aired every day. It is a mess.
Yeah, someone hecked up.
Like, and the frustrating part of all of it is just it's hard to discuss this show without being afraid of spoilers and like where can I look, where can I look. You could not even know that an episode was leaked. Like that's kind of how messed up the whole thing is. And I mean, I don't know about like what you consider like a leak, or like is it an official leak if Cartoon Network puts it up. I don't really care in terms of leaks. I just care in terms of hard not to be spoiled, hard to know when you can talk about what. But I wasn't spoiled by anything. Did you see anything ahead of time?
I think I saw a couple of gift sets on Tumblr that I didn't understand, and then I was like, oh, okay, new Steven Universe. I better go watch it. And
Okay.
that's about it.
All right, good. Nothing bad. You didn't see the ending or anything.
No, I didn't. Thank goodness for that.
Okay, so we're gonna start with Steven's dream. So the first thing I gotta say is that I love Steven's new attitude. Like this is like Steven. I don't ask follow-up questions. Universe is gone, and now Dipper Pines is here, and I'm happy.
Yeah, thank God. I am so tired of Steven hearing like this ominous stuff and then just being like, okay. Like he doesn't do anything.
Like a part for the show to work, he kind of has to not ask too many questions because he could just be like, "Hey Garnet, what was it like back on Homeworld?" And then we just know everything.
Yeah, but like at the very least, they could provide some sort of reason as to why he can't. Because when they don't, all we can think of is why isn't he asking those questions?
Yeah. But this was nice. It was nice to see him actually pursue it. And on that note, we actually kind of got a I don't want to say it was a plot hole, but it was like something that was kind of like left ambiguous. Like, how much does Greg know? Like, if Greg was supposedly in love with Rose, you'd think he'd know some things. But this episode kind of clarifies that Greg is not interested in her past, and they had a relationship based upon comic books and other such adorable little things.
But then in an earlier episode, though, I think it was The Return. I don't know the titles, but it was the one when, Jasper first showed up. Greg was talking about how Rose told him about the war and how all these gems died. So clearly they talked about something. So either Greg was lying to Steven or the writers done goofed.
I think the implication, I didn't think about that, but I would guess the implication is that she did tell him things, but she didn't tell him things in detail.
I guess that's possible.
Like, okay, sure, I started a rebellion, there was mass shatterings, whatever. And then, they just ended the conversation there and talked about the latest issue of Spider-Man. That's how I imagine their relationship going. I thought that was cute. Greg's little discussion about like how his relationship with Rose was, and Steven's pursuing of actually wanting to know something.
Yeah, though there are some major plot holes with Garnet trying to keep Steven from knowing. And I'm sorry, I think I'm going to go off here a bit. But first of all, so I understand why Pearl wouldn't want to talk about it. That was clearly a very traumatic thing. And Amethyst just straight up doesn't know. So Garnet's the only person who can tell him. That much I understand. That was well established. But then Garnet's like, no, I can't tell you. We can't go. And when Steven asks why, she's like, because then you'll want to go more. That doesn't make sense to me. I think if Garnet says, hey, Blue Diamond's there right now, just wait until later and I'll take you there, then that would be fine. And even if Steven still wanted to go, because I guess that could happen, Garnet could be like, okay, here, I'll give you future vision so that you can see all these horrible futures that I'm seeing, because she's given him future vision multiple times. And then Steven no doubt would be like, oh, that's bad. That's a big risk. Okay, I won't go. But Garnet didn't even think about that. At the very least, she could have tried grounding him or something. But when Steven was like, no, I'm going to find out, Garnet didn't even try to stop her. She was just like, oh, well, there he goes. Like, Blue Diamond is there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the problem you have with Future Vision, is that, like, technically they could, the explanation could be Garnet saw something bad was going to happen there. She also saw that Steven was going to go no matter what, but she didn't necessarily know that Blue Diamond. I mean, for all we know, if Garnet went with them, maybe instead of kidnapping Greg, Blue Diamond just straight up shatters Garnet or something. Maybe. I mean, I agree. It's a little weird.
Well, yeah, and Garnet has mentioned that she sees possible futures. So my understanding is that, like, it seems like her future vision only works when she focuses on, like, a specific person or a thing. So maybe once Steven showed her the walker, she got future vision on the walker. Blue Diamond was already there, so no matter what possible future she saw, she would see Blue Diamond there, and then she'd see all these horrible possibilities from going there. So that's my understanding of it. But
yeah, maybe Garnet. Maybe this is all some, like, master plan by Garnet. Garnet wanted Steven to go to the zoo and learn. No, well,
Garnet was behind it the whole time.
But you do, yeah. It is true that the future vision thing is just kind of a questionable thing, because I mean, it pops up again later when they're like, "Is this plan going to work?" And she's like, you'll see." And it's like, well, does she see it working, or did she know everything was going to happen, or did she not? I don't know. I liked the scene, to be honest with you, between Garnet and Steven. I agree that the logic of it, I'm not sure is there, but I like that for, like, the first time in a while, Steven is actually standing up to Garnet, and for something, like, legitimately important, not for, like, Garnet wouldn't let him play at the arcade or something.
Yeah, no, I agree that that's a good thing, but the problem is that they kind of ruined that good scene by not thinking it through, is the thing. So, like, they had the opportunity for this great character moment, but they kind of ruined it, at least for me, because I couldn't stop thinking about all these logical fallacies.
That's fair enough. But it is hard with Future Vision to know what is a plot hole and what is just the ambiguities of Future Vision. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's a very good point. But speaking of the moment with Steven and Garnet, I think that this was actually a really good episode for character moments, like, in general, because we had Steven's moment with Greg earlier, where Greg talks about his relationship with Rose. Then much later in the episode, Greg has a great moment of sharing and loss with Blue Diamond, which is like, wow, a human interacting with a gem. We don't see that, like, that often. We get a funny moment with Amethyst and the popcorn. Maybe I wasn't supposed to laugh, but I kind of laughed at Pearl's reaction a little bit. And Garnet's like, "You're upsetting Pearl." We got to see Steven's uncle, which I did not expect him to come back, like, that soon. But I think there's just, like, a lot of really good character moments. And Connie gets in there, and Steven puts his foot down, which I think is, like, my favorite part about the episode.
Oh, yeah. I did really like the character moments in that episode. And, like, no matter how critical I am of this show, the saving grace for me has always been that the characters are really, really great. I don't know. I especially liked all the little moments, like when Connie knocked over the papers and was like, "Sorry, I'll clean that up later, but check this out." Or how Greg, like, pretty much just immediately, when Steven said that he was looking for answers, Greg was just immediately like, "Oh, okay, I'll help you." Because even though Greg's not, like, the type of person who would seek out answers, he understands that Steven would probably need closure, so he's going to help him with that. And that's great.
And how about his line when they're about to hop the fence? He's like, "This seems familiar," calling back to when he hopped the fence to meet Rose. Just a little line that you very easily miss. And I like the jokes in the episode too. The fourth wall joke, Steven looking like a little Korean woman. It's just so weird.
That was great. I loved that fourth wall joke. I think the only thing that would have made that better, though I know they would never do this, would be if the camera zoomed out and we were seeing one of the digital animators putting the scene together.
Oh, God.
And then Greg's voice actor walked by.
That was
That would be great.
Honestly, this is one of the more fourth wall breaking jokes. I mean, Sardonic's episode not included, but outside of that, they don't do fourth wall jokes that much. They do kind of like maybe little winks and nods, like something, like talking about crying breakfast friends, but really referring to Steven Universe. But this was like, here's a cell of Greg, like just there it is.
That was great, and I loved like showing off the Korean fashion and all the monuments and whatnot. It's like someone in the crew really likes K-dramas.
Steven Universe obviously takes a lot of influence from the East, so it's cool to see Steven going to the East.
Yeah.
What did you think of Blue Diamond? Because this is her first appearance in the not flesh, outside of the answer, right? This is her first appearance?
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen her face.
Yeah, and we've heard her because it was Garnet speaking for her. But what do you think of her?
I actually really like Blue Diamond. I think she has a really good design because the way that she's designed, she can have this really droopy, sad stature, but then as you see in a later episode, when she stands up and narrows her eyes and whatnot, she can be more commanding because despite how sad she is still a very powerful figure. I think that she has a really interesting personality. It is interesting to see that the Diamonds are grieving for Pink Diamond.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I thought that might happen, but I figured that since these are villain characters, it would just be like, oh, you killed my sibling. I must get revenge. But no, she's like legit so sad. And it's been thousands of years and she still can't get over it. And that's like legit grief right there.
We can talk about this a little more in the last episode with the song, because I think that really ties in. But I agree. I like Blue Diamond because, like, okay, so you have on the scale of like villains, and I mean, I don't know. Technically she's a villain, but there are no villains in Steven Universe. Okay. But on the scale of antagonists, you have Jasper, who is, kind of cliche, not in a bad way, but just like, I'm angry, I'm strong, I'm better than you. Then you have Yellow Diamond, who is like, powerful, and she yells, but she's like refined as well. You feel her power. But with Blue Diamond, she's so soft-spoken. It's a different kind of powerful. You still get that this is a giant. This is someone who you don't want to mess with, but it's not in the yelly way. It's actually like the opposite way. So I think it's great. I think that it's like you could have had just another Yellow Diamond that's just angry or has poise and stuff, but instead she's just this kind of mess, but you still fear her.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so rare to see a villain that actually has visible vulnerabilities. So I'm so glad that the show was willing to give us one. Though, I mean, I guess we should have seen it coming just by the type of show this is, but you never know, and I'm glad that they did deliver on that.
So wrapping up here, you noticed something in the movie that Steven and Greg were watching in the beginning?
Yeah, because at the very beginning of the episode, they were watching this movie, and you can see that there's these aliens that are like abducting cows, because that's what aliens do. But that was actually foreshadowing, because in the end, Blue Diamond abducted Greg.
I think that was pretty clever. I didn't notice that. She saw it. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's a good story like that will do that.
Yeah, Steven Universe actually puts like a ton of subtle foreshadowing like at the very beginning of episodes if you're willing to look for it. It's like you gotta be eagle-eyed for it, but it's pretty neat when you can catch it.
So yeah, so I thought Steven's dream was a good starting point for the arc to take because here's our protagonist actually doing something proactive. And then, I mean, I didn't see Greg getting abducted coming. Like, I knew something was going to go down, but like her just grabbing him and being like, well, see ya.
Oh, yeah. And there's actually something that I want to say about that scene. I think that they did a really good job with the music in that scene. Because see, what a lot of shows do is when they have a scene like this where something horrible is happening, they'll have like the over dramatic, the music will be booming like da 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 da, like, oh man, it's bad and you should feel bad. But in this one, you gotta really be listening for the music to hear it. And even then, it's not the type that takes control of the scene. It just adds to the emotion because the writers knew that the audience was attached enough to Greg to know that this is a bad situation. And it's ridiculous how many shows don't know this.
Well, it's also great because the scene, it's not one thing. Because on the one hand, Blue Diamond does empathize with Greg. They are sharing a kind of sweet moment of loss. Ironically, Greg's loss is the one that kind of caused her loss. But But so it's not the scene of like this evil villain, like I'm gonna take him and the hero will have to find him. Yeah. It's this touching, heartfelt scene that kind of turns dark for no other reason than the gems are different than Blue Diamond doesn't really understand what she's even really doing. She's just taking an ant, basically. So yeah, I think there's a very good setup. I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, I think I've said my piece on this one.
All right, you ready to have an adventure in light distortion?
No.
So how did you feel about this episode?
To be honest, I really didn't like this episode. It's not my least favorite, but it is up there because, like, it completely dissolved all of the tension that first episode set up. It's like, oh, you wanted a tense scene? Well, too bad. Have some jokes. Greg might be dead, but oh no, here's some slapstick. Oh, the gems are really big. Oh, and now they look weird. Isn't this funny? Like, come on, there is much worse at stake here.
That's how I felt about baseball. I'm never letting that go. No, yeah, I mean, my problem is actually kind of in the other part. I kind of liked the goofy stuff of, the Ruby bodies and stuff. I didn't think it was great, but I'm like, okay, this is all right. I chuckled at some of their jokes. My problem with the episode was more on the dramatic turn that it took, like, halfway through, because it's like, okay, here's Goofy, Pearl is a Ruby, and what's funny about that? Haha. But then halfway through, Steven is alone and crying and is like, this is all my fault for wanting to be so fast and saving my dad and stuff. And I just didn't buy it, because there has been other moments where Steven feels guilt. In fact, Steven feels guilt for a lot of things, a lot of which aren't his fault. But in something like Mindful Education, you really understand and get why Steven feels guilt over those he couldn't save. In this, It's like, I tried to save my dad too fast. Where? Like, what? Okay, first of all, how is it Steven's fault that any of the ship stuff is happening? Why were the gems letting Steven just mess with the ship? Like, did that make any sense to you? No,
Pearl should have been driving.
Why didn't they take Peridot? Like, okay, story-wise, sure, they wanted to have the core cast members, but that's lame. Realistically, you have a person who has flown homeworld ships recently.
She clearly understands how the ship worked because she configured it. So
yeah.
And Lapis is more than capable of defending Beach City by herself. She lifted an entire ocean. I think she can handle like a few days without the other gems there.
Connie can save Beach City by herself. Like, really, if we're being realistic. But no, like, seriously, I think that was pretty lame that Peridot didn't come, Pearl wasn't operating the ship, and no one seemed to have any question with Steven just kind of like mashing buttons. If Steven's going to cry over something, that's what he should have been crying over. Like, oh, why did I just randomly, why did I assume I know how to operate this console? They didn't even give it like a hand wave. Like, there's no like, oh, it's just like my Game Boy at home. Like, at least that would have made some sense, but this was just
now
like.
This is pod racing.
This is like mash, mash, mash. Oh, oops, did I accidentally kill you guys? I want my dad.
Yeah, and I think the reason this happened is we got ourselves the Steven universe. The way every episode goes, the motif, I don't know, but either way, it's like collapsing in on itself because it tried too hard to be funny and then jumped in for story bits. And that does happen in a lot of Steven Universe episodes. They're just having fun at the beach, and then suddenly, like, Jasper, the Kool-Aid Man or something, bursts in like, hi, time for a story. But in this one, it was too much.
Yeah, and also the placement. Okay, so, like, if you're talking traditional arc, you have the low, sad moment be, like, if we're talking 5 episodes, probably either the 3rd or 4th episode is where you have the character crying and hopeless.
Yeah.
Why the 2nd episode? That doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, if Steven was maybe at the time that he got into the zoo, maybe if he was like having a meltdown there, that would make sense. But here, it's like, okay, you just started this adventure. This is like you had 10 minutes of proactive Steven, and now you're gonna cry about how you tried too much. Like, you got to rescue your dad, dude. Like, you didn't there was no amount of planning that you needed to do. Like, you're being a protagonist. Don't stop. So that's kind of how I felt. I didn't dislike the episode, but the emotional core just didn't hit with me. I liked some of the jokes. How about I like the Ruby joke? They just crash into the rubies. They're like, we should do something about those someday.
That was pretty funny, and I liked when Amethyst tried to shapeshift, and she was like, "Whoa, Puma Cub!" That was adorable. But the science of the episode really bothered me, and I know no one else is gonna care, and I'm just a giant nitpick. But it really, because like when the gems said that they were made of light, I didn't think they were referring to literal light, like how kindergarten isn't literally kindergarten. I thought it was just some sort of magic alien energy that they were calling light because it was the easiest word to use. But when you say that it's literal light that they're made of, and that when they're moving like this, their light is distorting, that's when things get confusing, because that would mean that if they are distorting this way because the light around them is distorting, that would mean that the gems would have to be getting a constant feed of light in order to retain their forms. So all you'd have to do is put them in the shade and up, they're poofed.
Here's a question as well. Why would a ship that is only operated by gems ever have a feature? Why would there ever be an off button? Why would there ever be an option to do whatever Steven did? You know what I mean? Like, what would be the benefit of that? If theoretically you press that button and no one is ever able to save you, the ship just keeps on going, no one can get in it, and you're just dragged along forever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Why would it do that?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about science because every time I try to talk about science on here, I'm wrong and the writers did the math. But yeah, I don't know. With explanations for stuff like this, really less is more. Give it a hand wave and be on your way. The way
exactly.
They tried to explain a little bit too much just makes the questionable science feel even more questionable.
This ain't Star Trek, man. Just I'm sure they could have done something else if they wanted to have some sort of silly moments, but this was too much.
What did you think of the visuals?
Oh boy, well,
because it goes like 3D mode basically, a little bit like that. The lines like duplicate and stuff. If you don't remember,
that bit I was okay with. My problem was that it should have been like that the whole time, because once again, if light is distorting, everything that you see, that your eyeballs receive, is because of light. It's because light is being fed to you. So if there is no light, you are seeing absolutely nothing. And if light is distorting, everything should be visually distorting. So the gems might be literally distorting, but everything else should look weird visually because the light is distorting. Everything is light.
That's a good point. I really liked it. I think maybe if they had gone more with it, it would have been like headache inducing. I feel like some people probably would already complain about the amount that was already in the episode. I thought it was good, but I could see other people.
I'm not saying that it should be like constant, like flashing lights in that 3D vision, but they could have even provided some funny visual gags that way by having light distorting. Like maybe things change color. There's some, like everything looks like a funhouse mirror. There's like some weird color scheme swaps, or, they could do that joke from the last episode of Gravity Falls, where Dipper and Wendy kept switching between, now they're anime style, now they're live action, that sort of thing.
True.
But yeah, so it wasn't just bad scientifically, but it was also just a missed opportunity.
Overall, I thought the episode was okay. Like I said, I enjoyed some of the goofy stuff.
I don't hate it because the science is bad. I don't expect every show to be scientifically accurate. It's just that this is the stuff that I think about when I watch it. And that's why you should never get too deep into your science when you're trying to tell a joke like this. I'm sure there's a better explanation you could come up with than that.
On another note, I don't know if you watch Adventure Time, but am I crazy, or does the zoo look like the Citadel from Adventure Time?
I haven't been keeping up with the newer episodes, so
maybe the comments can tell me, but I swear it looks like you took the bottom part of it. It's the same color scheme and everything. So, Gem Heist. So this was another episode where the characters all put on an elaborate ruse to fool Holly Blue Agate, who is the new gem. So I'm a little split. I liked the episode. and I think that it's a cool conceit to have them all playing the roles they're supposed to play. But at the same time, they've done this like twice.
I guess, but in Hit the Diamond, Pearl didn't have to act like a literal Pearl, or I guess,
Well,
no, wait, because they were pretending to be humans, but
they did. I mean, they did. Ruby did this and Hit the Diamond, and then Amethyst had to be Jasper in Back to the Moon. I don't think that necessarily this time was bad. I just think that I don't really ever want to see it again on this show. I think that they've kind of played that card enough.
yeah, you're right. I mean, it is kind of interesting to see the whole gem cast system in action on one hand, but on the other, this was like a really boring episode.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of plays into a complaint I had, and I think you have too, about the whole arc, in that there's never a fight scene. There's never one. There at the very end, there's just kind of a mock fight scene, just kind of a slap down, really.
Yeah, squash fights don't count. We need actual tension in our action scenes.
Yeah, and like I'm sure someone would tell me that, Steven Universe isn't an action show or something, but like a little bit of action goes a long way, and I'm not expecting much. And typically when we get these bombs or these sequence of episodes, there's always at least one. There was the Super Watermelon Island. There was either Beta or Earthlings, whichever one was Smokey versus Jasper. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. There's always like at least one episode that really does just kind of get out all the fighting, and then the rest of the episodes can be talking and crying and singing.
Yeah, and they didn't even have to be fighting each other per se, but some sort of action sequence, whether like maybe everything's going wrong and they're running away and trying to get into the ship, or maybe like Amethyst is fighting with the other Amethysts to show her dominance or something. I don't know, just some sort of action to make things interesting. Like even shows that aren't action shows know to have action scenes. Yeah. To make things fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was tension. It's not that there wasn't necessarily tension, but like that throughout the whole thing, it could have used just a little more, especially because the next episode is a very chill episode. It's got a very chill vibe, even though there's some kind of weird stuff going on. This one, the tension's there. It could have used more. And I know realistically, like, all right, asking them to fight Holly Blue Agate's probably a bad idea because they're on a ship full of amethysts and other stuff, and so like I understand why they're not just launching an all-out assault. Tactically speaking, this is a smart move. I'm just saying from a show perspective, just one fight, just one gem, like a guard that maybe an amethyst, maybe a jasper, maybe something that one of the gems had to beat up just to whatever. Like Amethyst had to fight one of her own to take the place. That would have kind of gone a long way.
And I had an idea as to how this episode could have been interesting. And what they could have done is that all of them except for Amethyst leave the ship. Amethyst hangs back and uses her shape-shifting to sneak around to try and get to help them out. So, we see her sneaking around doing all this espionage. Maybe she knocks out a guard a couple times. And then at the very end, we see Amethyst get captured, and we don't know what happened to her until later when we see her with the other Amethysts.
Which would be true because we can't know anything that Steven doesn't know, which is a conceit that I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed with.
I am tired of that, let me tell you.
It didn't bother me as much in this episode as the next one when they were all with the peaceful people. It could be used to break up episodes a lot better if we would have known what was happening with other characters. Like even in this one, if they had cut back to show what Sapphire and Holly were doing, what that conversation went like when they went to the ship and there was no explosion. Like did Sapphire have to, quickly change things on the ship to make it look like there was one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, as far as what the episode actually is, seeing Holly's cool. I mean, technically this isn't Homeworld. I don't know if we're ever going to actually see Homeworld. But this is, pretty close to Homeworld. This is a still functioning gem ship, so it is cool to see what it's like.
It is. I do think at some point we're going to see Homeworld, but it won't be for a while because you know how these writers are, feeding the smallest amount of information at a time as possible.
Yeah. What did you think of Holly?
She reminded me a lot of the Trunchbull, if you've ever seen Matilda.
Oh, that's who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
She made me think of Umbridge from Harry Potter.
I
Lamer
guess we had different childhoods.
but I get what that's that character archetype of she's this like really like strict, kind of like the female equivalent of a drill sergeant.
Yeah, I don't know. I did think she was interesting, but she was also a huge straw man. And I mean, I get that the show can't make every single character deep and intricate, but the problem is that it made the squash fight at the end of this arc really predictable. Like the moment that you see her being mean to the amethysts and down talking Pearl and all that, that's the moment when you know that, oh boy, she's gonna get some serious comeuppance.
Yeah.
Just wait, it's coming.
Yeah. It's weird because it's like, I mean, I guess at this point we've just kind of seen a lot of gems that the shock of like a new gem is very much wearing off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was okay, but it wasn't like one of those like, oh man, who is this new character? I gotta know. Not like Bismuth. You know, you see Bismuth and you're like, oh, what is the deal with this gem?
Oh yeah.
But you know, you see her commanding around the amethyst, and you're like, all right, we get it. Like this is her. And even when they sing about her, the diamonds sing about her, they're like, she's meant to terrify. Like that. Yeah. That's what she does. Like that's it. So all right, it was all right, but yeah, it wasn't anything shocking or really interesting.
Yeah, and the thing about Steven Universe is usually they're pretty good at their character writing. I'd say 90% of the time they're good, but when they want the audience to dislike a character, they will make that character the most awful, reprehensible, unlikable straw man ever with not a single touch of humanity or redeemability to it. Like,
yeah, the two, Kevin and
Marty.
Yep,
also awful. No one likes him. He's a pooper. He sucks.
Marty saddened me too because I was hoping that Marty was portrayed as evil because it was Greg's story and that Marty was actually going to be just kind of a normal guy, but Greg kind of villainized him for the sake of the story.
Yeah, they literally gave him pointy teeth just in case you don't get that he's supposed to be an unlikable person. They even did it with Jasper. For the majority of her screen time, she's being this horrible, horrible, horrible person. And then at the very end, when she's like, no, Pink Diamond, you're like, oh, wait, maybe. But at that point, it's too late. I already hate her. She's a horrible person.
But as far as this episode, honestly, I guess I would say I think it is just about like, okay, I think it's like a by the books episode. There wasn't really any twists or turns. There wasn't fighting. It wasn't that funny. There were a few jokes, but it wasn't like a really funny episode.
Yeah.
Just kind of a necessary get them to a certain place. But because it is true that they kind of they had to do it this way, because if they were to just like bust in, then Homeworld would like know all about them, even though Homeworld knows a little bit about them thanks to Peridot. It doesn't know about the gems, but knows about Earth. And because they have to kind of keep things under wraps, we're never going to get this big action-packed, like, let's take over the zoo. You know?
I mean, they could have done something. They could have like taken over it and then, I don't know, maybe have Peridot keep in contact with them and make sure that things are running in such a way that it still looks like it's a thing.
Well, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Or I don't know, maybe they just straight up blow it up. Goodbye, zoo.
Oh God.
Take that.
All right. So
they could have done something.
Anything else about Gem Heist?
Not really. Although I did like at the very end when Steven's getting dumped into the zoo, that machine he's in, you know, it looks very similar to Peridot's first appearance, and even the music is very thematically similar. Oh. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's interesting. The only thing I didn't like about it, about the ending, was what Steven was saying and how it broadcasts so obviously that the zoo is going to be like a paradise. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like there was no sense of like, you know, because like before you hear the zoo and Pearl's like, no, they wouldn't have kept that open. Like, and it's like, oh man, this could be something awful. But then Steven's like, give me your worst, zoo, I'll have you. And then of course,
oh yeah, like
of course.
And even before that, when Holly was like, oh yes, these humans are hard to control, but once you know their desires, like that's when you're like, oh, okay, so they're it's a cool paradise.
All right, well, we'll get into that then. The zoo.
Yes.
We bought a zoo. Um, it's funny because I know I'm saying this with a lot of these episodes, but I do feel like this was also another one that just kind of it's there. It does what it needs to do, but it didn't wow me.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like they went with the boring option because it's also like one of those things where I was thinking leading up to this, like, okay, if there's a zoo with humans, like Steven Universe is not going to be like, all right, we'll just leave them there. He's going to want to save these people.
But then he didn't.
He doesn't really care.
Forget y'all. I gotta save Greg. Bye.
Yeah, like here, let's introduce you to the idea of like actually choosing who you want to marry and stuff, and then just book it out of there and never question it again.
At the very least, he could have told them about Earth.
Right? Like
he could have done something.
I liked the vibe of the episode. I liked the music. I liked the scenery. And I like thematically, I think Steven Universe has a lot of themes, but I would say the core theme, if I were to give my interpretation, would be freedom to be what you want and not what you're told by society or whatever. And
yeah,
in this episode is that theme just encapsulated, because it's like, here's this paradise, but it's not really paradise because you're just told who you pair off with. Peridot would probably like it. That's how she ships. So I think it does good thematically for the show. I think this was like, okay, I don't think it was bad, but it didn't. There also was no twist. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there doesn't always have to be a twist, but it at least has to be interesting if there isn't.
Yeah, there wasn't a hook, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
I think, like we were saying, part of it is that we couldn't see what was happening with Pearl or Amethyst or Ruby or Sapphire or anyone else because we're stuck in Steven vision.
Like, did Sapphire and Holly just stand in that hallway in awkward silence until the diamonds show up?
That's a very good question. And then how did Amethyst become friends with the other? Did they capture her and she was like, "Yo, I'm an Amethyst," and like, "Oh, so cool, Amethyst!" Like, how did that happen? We don't know. Not explained. But so yeah, I think this episode could have used a little more, but I was satisfied with what it was. Even though the more I think about the episode, the more like weird implications start to arise.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where are the kids? Where are the old people? When they pair up, like, are they all inbred? We saw like eight people. Like, we did not see like a whole bunch of humans. So
there's no inbred people are not this hot. Okay.
well, to be maybe. Maybe the gems selected attractive humans, and then they clearly weren't very bright. We know that much.
Oh yeah,
they don't question things. How about their what did you think of their like attire? They reminded me of like Toads from Mario, like that color scheme.
I didn't even think of that. Oh no.
It was so weird.
Man.
I guess this also this episode kind of confirms. I'd call it a soft confirmation that there are not going to be any other aliens in the series, because if there's a zoo, you would think that they'd have specimens from all over, not just an Earth zoo.
I mean, that's kind of a good thing, though, because I think if they introduced other aliens, it would make things a little too crowded.
Yeah. The only reason I liked it was because that was one of the theories floating around of like, why do gems need an army? Like, what if humans are the only other beings? Like, why would they need an army?
I guess that's a good point.
But theoretically, there could be other aliens, but just the show doesn't really want to show us that, because that does open up a whole can of worms.
Yeah, that's true.
Or a can of Sneeple, as I should say.
They're out there.
What are your observations about this episode? I've been talking a lot.
Okay, so first off, the design of it reminded me way too much of Mirror Island. It looked almost exactly like it. And I thought that it would have been cool if they'd done this thing where maybe it looks kind of like Earth, but like a little's off. Like maybe the grass is blue instead of green, or or everything's all geometric. Like only the apples were geometric, but everything else looks normal. So at that point, why can't the apples be normal?
That's a very good point.
And it was a very generic depiction of paradise, which was kind of sad to me, because Steven Universe usually provides these really cool, interesting designs, but in this one, it's just, here's paradise, it's green, and there's water. Enjoy.
Yeah. It didn't look bad, but you're right. It wasn't very unique for Steven Universe.
I did like how Greg just kind of goes with the flow. He's just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm here now.
Greg's a dirty hippie at heart.
Oh yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
I did find it weird that there wasn't a single human in that zoo that questioned anything. Like, why wasn't? I mean, I guess
after thousands of years, if this is like what their parents were, but we don't. Man, we don't know. These could all be like these people could have like chips in their brain or something for all we know. They didn't do a great job of like, yeah, I don't know.
And then there were like some weird problems with the timing, like how everyone's asleep, so Greg and Steven sneak off, but then those two people show up. It's time for the choosening.
Yeah.
You went to bed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and then how often does this choosening happen? Is this just for like mating reasons, or is this like a life bond that just so happens to happen at the time that Steven gets? And why was Steven excluded? Like, we know Steven was excluded because it would have been incredibly creepy to pair Steven off with another human, but possibly his dad.
I thought he was excluded because he was a kid, and these are like lifetime mates.
But why would the Gems know that?
I don't know.
I mean, that's a story reason. I didn't want to see Steven paired up. That would be creepy. But again, especially because his dad was in the mix. But no, but you know, like why would the Gems? I don't know. Maybe the Gems really did study humans and like get it.
Maybe. I don't know. One thing I did notice, and this might be a coincidence, but I'm pretty sure it's not, is this episode and this whole arc too, but this episode in particular is very similar to a webcomic called Neo Cosmos, which is made by one of the show's storyboard artists.
Oh.
And Neo Cosmos is about how the human race has gone extinct, and the last of the humans, which are these kids, are being taken care of and researched by this separate race of aliens. And there was a lot of similarities that I noticed. So I feel like that might have been the inspiration for the arc, maybe. I'm not sure.
Possibly.
There were some background characters that look kind of similar, but yeah, I don't see why they needed to simulate like a sun, like the day and night cycle, or like they could have at least made it look cool, like that ceiling from Spirited Away, baby's room, if you've seen that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, or like we saw that the amethysts were comforting the other the zoo people. So do zoo people like know the amethysts? Do they have like friendships with them?
If the door never opened, then theoretically, at least this generation of people would have never even have seen a gem.
That's true. Like they'd be like, who are these purple people?
Well, I don't know. I guess they're raised not to question things. So, but then why were they questioning Steven? And yeah, I don't know. I guess one thing that I really would have liked, and this could have maybe given it the hook, was just a hint that there was something darker going on. We don't need. I don't need to. You know, obviously it's Steven Universe. I'm not expecting it to be like, you know, a severed human head on like an operating table somewhere. But like just a hint that maybe Steven overhears a conversation between two scientist gems or something talking about like, do you think they're ready for the procedure? Or like something, you know, because you get the feeling that there's something going wrong there. But because they never actually really hint at it, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, this is just a clean, you know, really boring story of these are humans. They're happy here. They don't have a choice, but they're kind of happy. Like,
and I didn't really like how passive Steven was during the whole thing. Like, for example, in the 2003 Ninja Turtles, there's this whole arc where the characters are sent into space and they're enslaved by these Triceratops aliens. And at the end of the arc, they break out all of the prisoners in this jail and cause all this chaos so that they can escape. And then a couple seasons later, you find out that the escapees of that prison formed their own insider rebellion group and they help out the main characters. It'd be really cool if something like that happened here, where like maybe you don't see what happens, but at the very least, like maybe Steven and Greg instill like the American freedom way into these people, and they're like, wow, we need our freedom. And so they start this whole calamity, and that's what causes all of the amethysts to run in, and then maybe a few seasons later they find out that the humans had somehow taken over the zoo. That would be cool.
Do you think that we're ever going to see the zoo again? Because I have my doubts.
I don't think so. I think they're just going to hand wave it.
But it is weird that Steven just didn't really care that there's just these people here. Like, I mean, I guess like, I mean, I don't know. You can't expect Steven to care about well, I kind of expect Steven to care about everyone.
Steven is a very caring person, so it was really weird that he didn't care at all. That these people...
These are just these humans. I guess realistically trying to like put them with regular human society would be not necessarily a great idea. But
no,
like,
but he would at least want to try to free them.
Right? Like, how about like, oh, we got to save them. And you know, Pearl's like, there's no time or something. Like,
I know.
Yeah, he cared about Lapis when Lapis was a prisoner.
Yeah.
How about that?
It felt to me like that's where the arc might have been going, because they built up this zoo so much, but then like the writers came to the part where they're trying to figure out how to free them, and they're like, oh wait, we don't want these characters to come back. Where do we put them?
Yeah. What are we gonna stick them all at the barn too? There we go. Peridot and Lapis can adopt them.
Here are your 27 children. Take good care of them.
That would be actually kind of funny, because it's like, all right, now Peridot, use everything you learn to explain to humans what it's like to be a human. Like,
that would be great, but it seems to me like the writers were like, nah, it's too hard. They'll just go.
Mm-hmm. I think the writers said that will be all. I'm sorry. Do you have anything else to say about the zoo?
Oh, you ruined your segue. No, I think I've said my piece on it.
Okay, same here. I mean, I guess I could say that about the 3 middle episodes, is that I feel that all of them, they did okay, like varying degrees of okay. I liked all of them, but I don't think any of them really did anything that wowed me. The first episode kind of wowed me, but then, you know, of course, there's the finale. That's the time to wow me, and
yes,
I was kind of wowed.
There was like semi-wowage, I guess.
Well, let me just say the first thing that I noticed about this episode that I think might be easy to overlook is that this is, to my knowledge, the episode with the most gems in it. Different kinds of gems and just gems in general, because there's a bunch of amethysts. There's a jasper. There's a carnelian, which I think counts as a separate gem, right? It's not just another amethyst form.
Well, I mean, amethyst is just another quartz, so in that regard, yeah.
Okay. Holly blue agate, Steven, 3 pearls.
Yes.
Yellow and blue diamond, ruby, sapphire, and garnet got in there. And Greg's there too. But that's a lot of gems for one episode.
That is. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I guess this is the most gems we've seen in an episode.
Yeah, none of them were cardboard cutouts either.
Yeah, I loved the Famethyst. Like, you got the sense that they all had their own personalities, and that's like the thing I wish the zoo had. They didn't even have to say anything, but just their poses, their expressions, what they were doing, all of that gave the sense that they had their own ideas and personalities. I
like what they did with the design of the amethyst in that, honestly, kind of all of them look to be a little deformed in one way or another. One's missing a tooth, you know, one's got like weird hair, and you know, like they all kind of, even though we define our amethyst as the runt of the litter, it turns out that, you know what, they're all kind of runts of the litter in their own way. So that's,
she's got her own family. It's great.
I liked them, but I think that their existence makes this episode way too easy.
Yeah.
Like it's just the easy button, because it's like, all right, well, here's just a horde of amethysts to hide behind. They're all on your team. Not a single one of them wants to defect to Holly Blue Agate. I mean, for obvious reasons, but like,
that'd be too hard.
I would have loved it if the Jasper was like, no, this is my chance to be a real Jasper.
Like the other Jasper, you know, the one. And she looks directly into the camera.
And then, yeah, the bulk of the episode was Steven and Greg witnessing the diamonds, just kind of chilling, you know?
Yeah. Just having a heart-to-heart, sister-to-sister.
Well, this is the first thing, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think the thing that maybe was the most surprising takeaway for me is that they explicitly say that they love her. the other diamond. And
Yeah.
we're taught, I mean, even in the earlier episode, Ruby was like, what Blue Diamond doesn't love? She doesn't believe in fusion and love and you know, we're kind of led to believe that like love isn't what the gems do. They have like, you know, duty or whatever. So to hear them singing about how they love the fallen diamond is interesting.
I mean, it does kind of make sense because the diamonds are supposed to be these advanced gems, so it would make sense that they would have more emotions than the typical gem.
That's always what I said, is that like gems, they don't have, it's not that they don't have emotions. You know, we've always seen homeworld gems have emotions. It's just kind of restrictive emotions, not, you know, free expression of them or whatever. Yeah.
But since these gems are at the top of the litter, they don't gotta restrain for nobody. They do what they want.
Do you think it's that, or do you think that maybe they haven't, maybe this loss was the first great loss to them? That's kind of what I might be thinking. You know, because it's like, okay, well, if you've never really, if all these other gems are so far beneath you or whatever, who cares if they're shattered or whatever? You could just make more. But if this is one that is your equal that is lost, then that might spark a feeling that they've never felt before.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Holly Blue Agate said in one of the earlier episodes was that after Pink Diamond got shattered, this began Era 2. It was a very fast line, but it kind of made me start to think that what if Gem Society has changed significantly since since Pearl and Garnet were there.
Well, like, Peridot did mention that in an earlier episode. When they were addressing how she didn't have powers, she said that she's in Era 2 Peridot and that they can't make gems like how they used to.
I would not have remembered that.
See, it's a Peridot line, so of course I remember it.
That's what I found interesting, is that, you know, I think, yeah, I mean, I guess if it's that big a deal, if your society is run by 4 supreme beings and one of them falls for the first time in ever, that's going to change things.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's cool to see that the implication that it has changed. And there were other mentions of that even before Peridot, like when Lapis went back up to Homeworld and then she sent him the message like, it's so advanced, I don't understand anything.
Yep. Hey, speaking of Lapis terraforms. We got a confirmation that's what she does. She terraforms. They had a line in the song.
Yeah, it's a good thing, too, because I was wondering why they would need a water thing. So now I understand. Okay, they need her to terraform things. Still didn't explain why sapphires freeze things, but at least we're getting something.
It also doesn't really explain what Lapis was doing during the war.
I mean, I think she said she came down to visit, but
just to chill, you know. But yeah, that's interesting. And then I guess the other takeaway, of course, the big thing that kind of has to be said is the rose quartzes.
Oh yeah, so many of them.
This is where they're at. You know, it is one of those things that as a story conceit, we kind of need a reason why there isn't just a bunch of rose quartzes chilling.
Because I think that was a good excuse.
Yeah. You know, we have to have it be special. Otherwise, it'd be weird. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't make Steven's mom special. Even if she was the one that led the rebellion, it'd be weird. Like Pearl, okay, she is... We don't know which Pearl she is, but Pearls seem to look different, at least depending on who they're owned by. So it makes sense that she's unique and she's a sword fighting Pearl. Garnet is unique because she's a fusion, the only one. And Amethyst is unique because she's the runt. You know, so we kind of needed a reason why is our rose quartz important compared to others, and now we know that all the others they're bubbled.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense that they discontinue the rose quartzes after one of them defected, because they'd probably be like, oh, wow, these sorts of gems, they only cause trouble. We better not make more of them. Oh, boy, wouldn't that be a mind screw that the finale is Yellow Diamond coming down to Earth with an army of rose quartzes to conquer? that would be a mind screw. All right, Steven, you gotta fight your mom now. You have to fight 7 million of your own mother. Good luck. Yeah. I know you don't like shattering, but they're not your real mom, so you know, do what you gotta do. I mean, your mom shattered a gem. Why can't you? Yeah. But that's really interesting. I wasn't expecting to really kind of get an explanation, or you know, at least not in this arc, of like what happened to them. But it makes sense because the whole arc was set off by Steven wanting to know more about a thing that ultimately belonged to Pink Diamond. Yeah. I still find the conspicuous absence of White Diamond to be very, very, very concerning. I think White Diamond's going to be like the final boss.
That's what I've been saying. Yes, I'm so excited. I hope that's what they do. Maybe that's the deal. Maybe White Diamond is the supreme diamond, and maybe that's who they've been fighting a war against, and why they need all these armies.
I mean, probably, but show's always got to have a final boss.
Yeah,
White Diamond's like the perfect candidate,
and White Diamond's been there, but not. We don't know, still don't know anything about her compared to Yellow Diamond and Blue Diamond, who we're starting to get a little bit of a picture about. And speaking of which, actually, the last line that Yellow Diamond says, or before that will be all, she says, Blue Diamond is like, well, I just wanted to preserve more Earthlings, and Yellow Diamond's like, then there's still time. Or has the cluster erupted yet? No? Okay, there's still time. I think that is going to set in motion what's going to happen next on the show. Because there's been there's been a big gap of ever since they kind of took care of Jasper. There's been a big gap of like, what's next for the show? They took care of Jasper, took care of the rubies, then hung out with Onion, learned a little bit about sword fighting. I got to know Mr. Smiley's annoying friend, okay, so, what's the next big push? Where, we've had pushes before of Jasper, of the cluster, of other stuff. I think this is finally it. We kind of had hints with Peridot and Yellow Diamond of Yellow Diamond wanting to do something with Earth, but now it seems explicitly like there's going to be some sort of invasion.
Oh yeah, they're probably going to start coming in, snatching humans, and I bet it's going to conveniently be at Beach City because that'd be all the characters we recognize.
Oh, I hope Ronaldo gets kidnapped so badly.
Oh my god!
Listen, I've been waiting so long for like any of the Beach City humans that aren't named Greg or Connie that get special, I don't know, best friend and father privileges. I've been waiting for any of them to have any interaction with the gem. And that doesn't happen on the show. What if
they take Ronaldo to the zoo and Ronaldo instills the rebellion?
Yeah,
he becomes a civic leader.
That'll be like the Where Are They Now ending. Like Ronaldo ended up at the zoo and he thinks he's running the place, but like he's actually not.
He forms his own space crew and goes looking for Snaple.
Oh gosh. But yeah, so I was happy with that. What did you think about the song? This is the first song in a while.
Oh boy, what did I think of the song? You saw my notes.
Well, I might be poking the bear a little bit.
Okay, so the lyrics were fine. The melody was fine. Yellow Diamond ruined the song. Ooh. Her singing was awful.
Oh man.
She started it out fine. But then she keeps jumping into these crazy high notes. Like, what is it you see here that doesn't make you feel worse? Like, why would you do that? You are clearly an alto. You need to stay in your lane.
See, I don't know anything about music. From my perspective, I mean, I agree about the lyrics. I'll talk about the lyrics in a minute because I really like the lyrics and the dual meaning. But in terms of the song, I thought it was okay. It wasn't, I mean, usually Steven Universe songs like I really like. I think the last one was in Mindful Education, actually, and that song is great.
Oh yeah.
But this one, I don't even know, personally for me, I don't even think it was Yellow Diamond. I think it was the pearls that really threw me off. Their weird eyeing. Like it kind of seemed a bit goofy, to be honest.
Yeah, that was one of the things, but it was mainly Yellow Diamond. And okay, so I'll explain a thing about singing. When you're singing, you're either an alto who specializes in low notes, a tenor who specializes in medium notes, I don't know the specific vernacular, or a soprano who specializes in high notes. And typically, you need to stay in your lane. Now, sometimes you can't. Like Brendan Urie can sing anything. He's the lead singer of Panic at the Disco. But in terms of Yellow Diamond, she needs to stay in her lane. She's zooming all over that road, causing accidents for everyone. And even just her delivery of some of the lyrics was too much. Like, what's the use in feeling blue? Like, she paused for just a little too long. Almost like, hey, you ready for the pun? You ready for the pun? Here it is. Have a pun. Oh, God. And just, it sucks because she sings all right for a little bit, and then she jumps into those high notes. It's like, come on, man, I'm trying to enjoy your singing, but you're making it difficult.
It's at this time that I please request my comment section to be nice to the guest.
I'm sorry.
No, please. Like, that's absolutely fine. I've gone into worse about this show. I agree that it wasn't a great song. I don't know. It's also weird because
it could have been great. That's the thing. It had the full, most perfect potential. Everything else, apart from maybe the pearls, was fine. It's just the singing that tanked it. But if someone else had sung it, or if Yellow Diamond had sung it differently, then it would have been a pretty good song.
Maybe this is the show trying to tell us that singing well is actually like a crystal gem and human thing. And no, I'm just kidding. That's probably how someone like an obsessive person would explain away problems.
I bet.
Oh, something when I watched the CartoonNetwork.com version, the audio was off.
Oh, really? How so?
Yeah. By about a half second, the audio played, I believe, after the visuals. It wasn't.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't like individual lines were messed up, so I don't think it was the show's fault. But yeah, it happened on the first time I watched it on CartoonNetwork.com. I think when I watched it again, it may have been fixed, or it was hard to tell because I was looking for it, and I'm like, is this just like me looking too hard? And like, you know, when you look at lip syncs like too much, like and nothing looks right.
Yeah, but man, that's well. If you're gonna leak it, you should at least leak it right.
Well, this wasn't even the leak. This was on time. This was the official episode. I don't. That was frustrating, but I soldiered on. I don't blame the show for that at all.
Yeah, sometimes things just get released weird. It happens.
Yeah. I guess we kind of talked about it, but yeah, at this point, there is no fighting in the entire week. We get one little beat down, which is nice, but there was never a fight. Like, why couldn't we have had a fight against Holly?
Or something. Yeah. Just some sort of action sequence.
Come on, Steven, you could take on the diamonds now. I'm sure you've got enough powers. If you don't have enough powers, I'm sure you'll develop like 3 new ones during the fight. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Greg can help. I don't know. He'll sing or something.
One thing that, and this isn't the show's fault, but something that's really getting on my nerves is, we get introduced to this whole sympathetic side of the diamonds, and it's great because now they're all interesting. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, all over Tumblr, all of these fans are like, oh no, now the show's trying to excuse their horrible behavior.
Oh my God.
Oh, you should feel sad for them and excuse them. And no, just because you're making a villain interesting doesn't mean you're excusing their behavior.
I'm convinced that a lot of people online, I don't even want to say it's a Tumblr thing. I think it's just an online thing. There's certain communities that get too attached to either a character or an idea about a show or something, and they can't see the story anymore. All they look at is like either a pairing or just like, I want my character to have the perfect ending and this and that. And it's like, dude, like, look at the story. For your character to have a perfect ending, it would mean that, like, you know, the most horrible contrivances would have to happen. That'd be an awful story. Like, you can like a character, but still realize that, like, okay, the greater purpose of this character is to die in the story. That is the purpose, you know, and be okay with that. But there are people that are very attached to certain things. And
the worst part is that there are people who are taking this to its extremes, like 90s skater extremes by saying that Steven Universe is now advocating for fascism and neo-Nazism by making their villains sympathetic, and by having Gem Harvest and admittedly I didn't like that episode, but like, the one bad episode does not mean that a show is advocating for neo-Nazism.
Oh God, I don't even want to know what people online had to say about Gem Harvest. I don't want to know.
That episode was finished like a year before that was even a thing, you guys. It takes a while to animate something.
All right. One last thing I have to say about That Will Be All is I lost it at the ending where they're all like at the ship just about to make it, and Holly just sees them. There's just the great poses of the characters, and it's just like
Oh, yeah, I love when like Garnet looks like she's about to punch her, then she just knocks her over. Like,
and then Pearl's just like, nah, you don't want to tell the Diamonds about this. They're so nonchalant about it too.
Is great. I saw the comeuppance coming up.
Yeah.
But it was still great. The only thing that would have been great would have been greater would be if it were a literal parallel to Matilda with all the amethysts throwing like water balloons in their lunches at Holly. But that's never gonna happen, sadly.
The very, very ending dialogue kind of annoyed me a little bit, where Greg's like, I hope you found what you were looking for. And Steven's like, I found you. It's like, no, Steven, you wanted answers. Get out of here. Like, yeah, saving your dad is important, but like, you can still get answers. Like we learn things, but do you think Steven really was paying that much attention to like all of the rose quartzes and all this other stuff? Like,
no way. That was totally for the fans.
Exactly. Like, that's kind of what I'm like thinking. Like, if that were me, I'd be like, hey, Dad, why is there like 800 other moms floating in that room? And what are those diamonds going to do with them?
What if they just got out a slingshot and just started popping all those bubbles?
God. Well, I like the one part where Yellow Diamond was like moving her hand and all the bubbles just like floated around. Like, oh man.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. Oh, man, there's a lot of potential. I see this as a very promising setup for what the next chapter, possibly the last chapter. I don't know how many more seasons the show's going to get, but
I doubt it'll be the last chapter. The way this show likes to drag things on, we still got like 7 more chapters before we get even close.
We'll get like 8 chapters of the webcomic after the series has ended before we get any closure. But at least, I can say this compared to other shows, that this show does move towards conclusions, even if it is very slow in delivering them. It does want to give us conclusion. We did see Blue Diamond for the first time outside of the answer.
That's true. Like, as slow as it goes, at least it's still moving.
Yeah. We did see another new gem. Holly Blue Agate is a new gem. We got to see Amethyst for the first time, aside from our Amethyst. So and there does seem to be a plan in place, and this was kind of necessary to see more of the diamonds, because there was no other circumstance like Steven just accidentally overhear, like because of the Steven perspective thing.
Yep.
He kind of has to. We have to learn more, so he has to learn more, even if I don't know how much attention he was paying.
Oh my God, the Steven thing needs to stop. Honestly.
He needs to pay more attention. I need proactive Steven in every episode. I want Steven to ask Pearl, like, all right, listen, which diamond do you belong to? Come on, just say it, all right? Like, all right, what the centipedal, what's her real name? Like, it. Just tell us. Like, come on. All right, so anything else to say about That Will Be All?
No, that will be all.
No, you get to use the pun.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't. I liked the lyrics of the song. I liked the double meaning of what's the point in feeling, blue. Because it's double meaning on what's the point in feeling at all, / what's the point in feeling sad, / what's the point in feeling your name is blue.
That's true. The lyrics were good.
Mm-hmm.
They were solid lyrics.
And that's also the song is also what made me kind of think of my theory of maybe the shattering of Pink Diamond is what's causing these new feelings, that these are new feelings, because it kind of sounded like Yellow Diamond. It's Yellow Diamond's plea for like, let's not feel things anymore. Let's just kind of like, yes, we'll miss her, but let's just not really share that emotion anymore.
Yeah, and that does seem in character for her. She does seem very contained, I guess.
Yeah, like let's put it behind it. Very Azula almost. Like very poised, but there's an anger underneath that you don't want to mess with.
Oh yeah.
Poor Giraffe Nick. So what did you think about the arc overall? Comparing it to like maybe other Steven bombs or just in general?
I feel like this arc would have worked if it were just 3 episodes. But it feels like they had to stretch it out in order to make it fit into a Steven bomb. And as a result, there's a lot of filler.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it did really hurt to have it be forced into Steven's perspective the entire time.
Absolutely.
because you do miss out on certain parts of the story, like villain motivation and what the other heroes are doing. It is about Steven, but Steven's not the only character we care about. We want to know what's going on with the other characters. Unless the next episode is going to be like, Sapphire's like, now let me tell you about the 5 minutes that I was away with Holly Blue Agate. And then Amethyst is like, oh yeah, and here's the 10 minutes that I was with, the other Amethyst. It's just tales from the zoo, No, but I think this was handled better than the cluster, but I liked the whole Beta and Earthlings and Back to the Moon and all that. I think that's been the best so far, of just kind of an arc of, we got fighting, we got mystery, we got answers, we got a lot of stuff. That last week of the Summer of Steven, really.
I'm a bigger fan of the Sardonyx arc, but this one definitely not as bad as the cluster arc, but it's not great.
Yeah, I would say it is just about like baseline. Like I guess it's also hard to say how important this is going forward, because we know the stuff with the diamonds was very important. Maybe the zoo will come up again. Maybe I'm sure Amethyst's family will come up again. That's definitely going to be something that happens.
I'm sure.
And Amethyst's ability to make friends with her family, that seems to be an ability that will come in handy later.
Maybe for once we'll have a gem that joins the team, not because they're best friends with Steven.
Yeah, how many
Just
more redemption
saying.
arcs? All right, so thank you very much for joining me here.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, there will be a link to Robobuddies' channel down in the description. You do mostly movie reviews, right?
It's mostly, I am going to start talking about shows, though. I have a video coming up that's talking about Troll Hunters that should be out soon.
So yeah, check out her stuff, link in the description and on the card and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes, goodbye.
All right, PIEGUYRULZ.